Where vows are weighed by no sleep scribe. Welcome, listeners. Love is a gift and a promise. One of the purest forms of love is that found between sisters. Tonight we follow Mara, a grieving sister who refuses to look away when tragedy strikes, and who discovers that the cost of love, honesty, and sacrifice may be far older and far darker than anyone imagined. The land remembers, the sea whispers, and the cottage waits. In Blackwater Cove, there's a honeymoon cottage unlike any other. It welcomes newlyweds, but it only blesses those whose love is true. Those who lie vanish. 7 days later, they are found, always together, always changed, always dead. Mara Caldwell arrives seeking answers. Her sister did not return, and now she must confront the cottage itself, the ancient living witness to vows, lies, and the price of love. So dim the lights, grab some tissues, and celebrate your sister in your heart. This is a work of fiction. Please listen with the lights low, and be sure you keep your vows. If you enjoy psychological horror, atmospheric storytelling, and slow burn dread, you're in the right place. Welcome to Creepy Chronicles for No Sleep Nights. Stay a while, but don't forget, every promise must be tested. Make sure you pass. Story written and narrated by No Sleep Scribe. Like what you hear? Subscribe for more original dark fiction. Leave a comment. What parts stayed with you? Share with someone who loves unsettling stories. Content note: this story contains themes of death, grief, emotional distress, and brief but disturbing descriptions of mutilation and body horror. Listener discretion is advised. Where vows are weighed by no sleep scribe. The land be witness to a vow once sworn. It blesseth the honest and burieth the torn. From the Journals of E. Morn, 1693. The honeymoon cottage stood at the edge of Blackwater Cove, where the land thinned into marsh and the sea breathed in slow briny sighs. It was small and picturesque. White clapboard walls, lace curtains, a stone chimney forever trailing a polite ribbon of smoke. The town brochures called it charming. The older residents used a different word: necessary. No one remembered a time when the cottage hadn't belonged to the town. Deeds yellowed in a municipal safe traced ownership back more than a century, always the same name listed beneath current holder: the people of Blackwater Cove. No one had ever tried to sell it. No one ever would, because the cottage chose its guests, honeymooners. Every newly married couple from the nearby area was provided a week there, free of charge, as a tradition. Most refused it. The town council smiled when they offered it. Their smiles never reached their eyes. It was also quietly rented to outsiders to keep a steady flow of guests. Inside, the cottage was warm in a way that felt almost intimate. The floorboards creaked softly, as if responding to footsteps. The bed was old oak, carved with entwined roses and thorns. The mirrors were slightly tarnished, turning reflections softer, kinder. Couples often remarked how right it felt, how time seemed slower, thicker like honey. When love was real, the cottage blessed it. These couples lived long golden lives, the kind people envy. But when love was false, the cottage took notice. It never acted immediately. That was part of the cruelty. The week would pass pleasantly. Laughter, wine on the porch, promises whispered in the dark. The couple would leave, wave goodbye to the sea, and return to their lives. 7 days later, they would be found. Always together, always mutilated in ways that suggest intimacy turned inside out. Wedding rings embedded in flesh, mouths sewn together with fishing line, bones arranged in mock embraces. Coroners never agreed on a cause of death. Animals were blamed, accidents, cult activity, anything but the truth. The truth was as old as the town itself. Blackwater Cove had been founded by a woman named Eliza Morn, a midwife and herbalist who believed love was a sacred contract, witnessed not just by God, but by the land itself. When her husband betrayed her with another, Eliza cursed the ground where their home stood, not in anger, but in judgment. "Let love be proven," she said, as she burned her bedding and mixed its ashes into the soil. "Let false vows be punished, let true ones be rewarded." She then thrust a dagger into her heart, letting her blood stain the ground. When Eliza died, the land remembered. 7 days later, her husband and the woman he betrayed her with were found dead in bed together. He was atop her, and everywhere their flesh touched, they were melded into one grotesque corpse. Their bones were meshed together with no flesh in between. Both of them looked almost normal from the back, but where their skin touched, everyone who saw them fought with nausea. Some lost. All of them were plagued with nightmares for weeks. Generations later, when the town had grown larger around the old foundations, the curse widened. The cottage demanded balance. If it went unoccupied, if no couple came to test their vows, at least monthly, someone else would pay the price. One person every month, gruesomely. The deaths were always random. A fisherman discovered tangled in his own nets, ribs cracked open like a crab shell. A school teacher found slumped over her desk, chest hollowed out. A council member's son found in a ditch beside his crashed bicycle, an emptiness where his heart once lived. The body was always found with a gaping chest wound, the heart missing, and a message written in blood. The heart must be tested. The message was clear. Participation was not optional, so the town complied. They repaired the cottage lovingly. They advertised it subtly at an irresistible price. They encouraged honeymoons there, smiling, smiling, smiling. When couples asked about the rumors, the locals laughed too quickly and changed the subject. At night, lights still glowed in the cottage windows, even when no one was inside. The bed creaked, the mirrors clouded and cleared on their own. The cottage waits, for love is a tongue of falsehood, spoken fair, yet hollow within. So it suffers the vows to flower as the field, and afterward measures what was truly sown. Mara Caldwell arrived in Blackwater Cove 3 days after the phone call, after hearing the sheriff's voice, distant and hollow, as though he spoke from the bottom of a well. Your sister and her husband were found early this morning. I regret to inform you that they are both deceased. A week earlier, Lila and Andrew had been married in Wentworth, Maine, the same city where Mara still lived, before moving to Blackwater Cove, then to their free fairy tale honeymoon at Morn Cottage. Mara parked in front of the town hall, engine idling, hands clenched on the steering wheel. The air smelled like salt and rot and something faintly sweet, as if flowers were decaying just out of sight. Blackwater Cove looked exactly like the kind of place honeymoon brochures adored. Quaint storefronts, white fences, hydrangeas fat with bloom. Too perfect, like a lie that had been practiced. Her sister had always loved places like this, loved romance, loved believing in things. She had relied on Lila to help her face the world. Lila had always been the brave one, the one Mara trusted more than anyone, the only person who ever made her feel safe. Lila had been ecstatic when she discovered that the town offered the cottage free for a week to any newly married couple who lived in the area. They'd poured nearly everything into chasing their dream of a quiet home on the coast and into the wedding itself, so there wasn't much left for a honeymoon. And Morn Cottage was beautiful. Mara had sighed happily over the pictures Lila sent during her honeymoon, smiling in every photo they sent, bare feet on the porch, wine glasses catching sunset light. Lila had written, "It feels like the house is hugging us." Mara hadn't liked that. It sounded too much like something that didn't intend to let her sister leave. Inside the sheriff's office, Sheriff Tom Hale slid a thin folder across the desk. He didn't meet her eyes. They were found in their home, he said. No signs of forced entry. Mara opened the folder. She wished she hadn't. The photographs showed Lila and Andrew arranged on their bed, faces turned towards each other, mouths sewn together with what looked like fishing line. Their wedding rings were gone from their fingers. "Where are the rings?" Mara asked quietly. Hale swallowed. We didn't find them." Mara closed the folder. Her hands were steady. Her heart was not. "How did they die?" "They died of heart failure," he said. Then, after a long pause, "And someone did the other stuff afterward." His eyes said the rest. "Please don't ask me who. Please don't make me say it." Mara scoffed. "Seriously? They were murdered. Look at them." He straightened in his chair. "I know they couldn't have sewn themselves together like that. I also know they were both young and healthy, with no history of heart problems. But the autopsies show heart failure was the cause of death for both of them, and the autopsies were done by the county coroner in Wentworth. If you have problems with that, take it up with them. We are continuing to investigate the tampering that occurred after their deaths. I'll let you know if we identify a suspect. Mara sat silently for several seconds. When I told my friends at work that I had to travel here to find out what happened to Lila, one of them asked me a strange question. He asked if they've honeymooned at Morn Cottage. Then he said there were rumors, old ones, that couples who stayed there didn't always make it home. The sheriff looked guilty. What are you suggesting, Miss Caldwell? Tell me about the cottage, she said. The sheriff leaned back, chair creaking. For a long moment he said nothing. Then, I can't. Mara smiled thinly. You can. Or I start asking everyone else. The sheriff finally met her eyes. As long as you don't break any laws, I can't control what you do, Miss Caldwell. However, for your own sake, I strongly encourage you to go home, mourn your sister, and get on with your life. The town was full of people who wanted her to stop asking questions. At the diner, folks paused when she mentioned Lila's name. At the bakery, the woman behind the counter crossed herself when Mara asked about the cottage. At the inn, the owner refunded her room without being asked and begged her to leave early. Only Mrs. Greaves, the oldest woman in town, spoke freely. They were a lovely couple, she said, rocking slowly on her porch. Shame he didn't really love her. Mara stiffened. What do you mean? Mrs. Greaves' eyes were pale and watery, but sharp. Your sister loved her husband, she said. No doubt about that. And Andrew? The old woman's smile was gentle, pitying. Mara felt something cold settle in her stomach. That night, unable to sleep, she drove to the cottage. It stood just as Lila had photographed it. White walls glowing in moonlight, curtains stirring though the windows were closed. The front door was unlocked. Inside, the air was warm, familiar. The bed waited, neatly made. Mara stepped closer and froze. 2 wedding rings lay on the pillow. They were tangled together, and beneath them, carved deep into the wood, were words that had not been there before, letters sharp and fresh, as though cut by a careful hand. Only one heart was true. Mara backed away, breath shallow. The cottage creaked softly, almost apologetically. Somewhere in town, a bell tolled midnight. Mara didn't leave. That alone made the town uneasy. By morning, word had spread that Lila's sister was still in Blackwater Cove asking questions. That night, Mrs. Greaves knocked on her motel door. You shouldn't be here, the old woman said softly, hands folded in her cardigan. You're upsetting the balance. You let my sister die, Mara replied. Mrs. Greaves flinched. No, she said. Your brother-in-law did. Silence stretched between them, thick and damp. He wasn't faithful, Mrs. Greaves continued. Not in his heart. The cottage knows these things. It listens. It watches. It waits until the lie has time to rot. Mara's voice shook despite herself. Then why punish Lila? The old woman's eyes filled. Because vows are shared, lies poison both. Mara closed the door in her face. Sleep came in fragments. She dreamed of the cottage breathing, its walls swelling and shrinking like lungs. She dreamed of Lila standing at the foot of the bed, mouth stitched shut, eyes full of warning. Mara made herself unignorable. She continued questioning anyone and everyone she encountered, asking about the cottage. She researched online. She made lists. She combed through town hall records. She wanted to know how many of the cottage's former guests died 7 days after checkout. She left a 1-star rating on every online advertisement, along with detailed rumors about the cottage. She overheard plans for an emergency town meeting and crashed it unapologetically. At the meeting, voices cracked and hands shook. "We can't do this anymore," someone sobbed. "We don't have a choice," the mayor whispered. Every eye in the room turned toward Mara. "If no one stays," someone said hoarsely, "the cottage chooses for us. No way to prevent it. No test to pass. No blessing. Just one death after another after another." That was when the idea settled into her, slow and terrible, the way grief becomes a decision. "I want to stay there," Mara said. The room went silent. "You're not married," the mayor whispered. "But I do love someone truly. It may not be romantic love, but it is true nonetheless. And now she's dead. I want to confront the cottage about that," Mara replied. They tried to stop her. They begged. They threatened. "We have no idea what will happen if we let a single person stay. It has always been couples." But the curse was older than law, and the town had learned long ago that resistance only multiplied the dead. They needed Mara under control before bookings were lost and the townsfolk started to die again. So they eventually agreed, some reluctantly and some with a fatalistic pragmatism, muttering, "Someone has to take care of her. Might as well be the cottage." 3 days later, Mara boldly stepped into the cottage, alone. The door closed behind her with a sound like satisfaction. The warmth was immediate. The air pressed close, intimate, curious. The mirrors fogged as she passed them, though her skin was cold. "I know what you are," Mara said aloud. "You punish liars." The floorboards creaked. "And you reward love," she continued. "Real love." She placed Lila's wedding ring on the bed. "I loved her," Mara whispered, "more than anyone." The cottage stilled. The walls groaned softly, as if thinking. 7 days passed. The town waited. On the 7th night, light blazed from the cottage windows, brighter than it ever had before. The sea churned. The wind howled like a woman screaming and laughing at once. In the morning, the door stood open. Inside, the bed was gone. So were the mirrors. So were the rings. The warmth bled out of the cottage like a dying breath. Paint blistered. Wood split. Something ancient loosened its grip and finally let go. No more couples ever stayed there again, and no one in Blackwater Cove ever died for the cottage again either. They never found Mara's body, but sometimes at dawn, the townsfolk swear they see two women walking hand in hand along the marsh, faces peaceful, mouths free, love unbroken at last. And the land, at last satisfied, remembered them and let them go. And lo, the cottage waited still, yet gentler grew its vigil, for one true heart had paid the price, and the land honored the sacrifice.